It's story time. The stories are real, the judgments are yours. You're invited to the next episode. Real, disturbing, scary stories. Ready to judge? Hit the subscribe button, drop your thoughts below, and enjoy. My fiancé and I love hiking. We've had some strange moments on trails before, but nothing like what happened a few weeks ago. We went for a short hike at a state park we've been to dozens of times. The first half was normal. The air was calm. The woods were quiet. Then we came around a bend and saw a woman standing off to the side, crying softly. Not loud or dramatic, just quietly, like she wasn't even aware anyone else was there. A few feet ahead of her was a man with his back turned, pushing a stroller down a rocky trail where a stroller made absolutely no sense. We kept walking, trying not to stare. About 5 minutes later, we decided to turn back because we were starving. On our way back, we saw the man again, still pushing the stroller. I glanced inside out of curiosity. It was empty. No baby, no blanket, just an empty stroller being shoved through the woods. Without thinking, I whispered to my fiancé, "There's no fucking baby in there." I thought we were far enough away that he wouldn't hear me. We weren't. My fiancé looked over his shoulder a moment later and said quietly, "He's staring at us." I didn't look back. I didn't have to. I could feel it, the weight of his stare. Then came the sound of footsteps behind us, picking up speed. He was following us. We started walking faster. He sped up too. Every time we looked back, he was still there. Not close enough to reach us, but always visible, always watching. We passed the crying woman again, and she didn't even look up. The stroller was gone now. The man in his blue hoodie was walking quickly behind us. That's when we ran. We'd lost sight of him for a second, then there he was again. Still walking, still following. Finally, after what felt like forever, we caught up with another group of hikers ahead. As soon as we did, he was gone. Vanished into the woods. We sprinted to the parking lot, jumped in the car, and tore out of there. The whole drive home, I kept second-guessing myself. What if there really was a baby? What if he just wanted to confront us? But deep down, I knew something was seriously wrong. I haven't gone back to that entrance since. Sometimes I hike from different parts of the park, but lately I've noticed baby clothes scattered along the trails. Little socks, a onesie, and every time, that same cold feeling crawls up my spine. There was one call I went to, a death notification, that really freaked me out. I had to contact some family members of deceased woman that was involved in a fatal car accident a few miles away from her home. When I arrived, I met a woman near the roadway, just inside the property gate. She said she heard me coming from miles away. I asked her if she lived at the residence, which she confirmed she did. After asking her to speak with me at the house, she agreed, but said she needed the walk as the house was about 75 yards from the road. After making it to the house, I approached the front door on a small wooden porch and began scanning the driveway for the woman. It was about 1 a.m. and completely dark. While looking for the woman, the front door opened and a younger woman appeared. She was concerned about my presence and asked if everything was okay. I asked if I could speak with her and any other adults inside, and she welcomed me in. I told her I would wait for the woman I met near the gate, and she told me nobody else should be home. I then freaked out and began searching the property. Nothing. After entering the residence, I told her and her husband the news about Susan, which ended up being her mother. She said her mother moved in a few months back after her father had passed and wasn't handling it well. While she and her husband were comforting one another, I began looking at photos on the wall. There was this picture of a mid-aged woman that stuck out to me. She was a younger version of the woman I spoke with near the gate. While looking at the picture, the daughter confirmed that was her mother, the woman that passed in the wreck. I spoke with the ghost of the individual that died in the crash just before telling her family what happened. This happened around a year ago when I was 19, before December. I was chilling at my house when suddenly someone rang our doorbell, so I went to answer it with my father. Before our door, a poor grandma around 80 years old stood there, holding like 3 heavy bags full of groceries. She quickly spoke up as she asked if we have a car, which we replied we don't, and asked why she needed one. She said that she had a heart problem, did not take her medicine, and that she was feeling dizzy. I offered to call her an ambulance, but she said she did not want to annoy them, and that she has already asked a bunch of people, who just laughed her off. I had some time before my boyfriend came from his work party, so I told her to wait a second, that I would escort her home. I grabbed a coat, some shoes, and my nearly dead phone and went with her, only telling my father that I am going out. Mind you, it was now around 8:30 p.m. She started telling me how she feels sick while I carried her heavy bags and told me that she lives at the bottom of a hill that we have here. So we walked together, but she stopped every few meters to take a breath as she was around 80 years old. After like a half hour, we got to the bottom of the hill, but suddenly, she said that she lives way more up. I thought okay, but the hill was connected to a forest, and the lighting there was poor, so on the left you only saw dark forest and on the right few houses. As I dragged her bags up the hill, she kept on making stops every few seconds, and the more she made them, the more I started to feel paranoid. My phone was almost dead, and some creepy noises were coming from the forest. After almost another half hour of listening her stories about her life, she started to make weird remarks. Every time I looked into the forest, she kept on telling me not to look since there is nothing there, only animals. Not weird, right? But she kept on saying something about her rich neighbor that wants to murder her and must not see us together or he would shoot us. The more we walked up the hill, the more sick I felt. Then we finally made a turn into a dark alley without no light, as she slowly dragged herself against the railing. She forced me to duck my head and even turn off my light, telling me that the neighbor will murder me. The closer we got to her gate, the more ruiny and abandoned it looked. It was around 9:35 p.m. when we got to her gate that she chained up at the bottom. She did not allow me to use my light to release the chain, but I was so stressed out that I just did it my way anyway. The door opened as I peeked into her overgrown garden full of trees, not even seeing a house. It was dark and she told me to go deeper in, but carefully, as it had no path and tree branches were in the way. After a few meters, suddenly a large man with unkempt beard and hair came out, greeting us and introducing himself as her son as he started to lay down small candles near the trees to light up our way. I felt like throwing up as I started to fear for my life, feeling like I was walking into some sacrificial ritual LOL. After the man excused himself to grab more candles, I just made an excuse to the grandma that my mom is calling me and quickly made my way towards the gate as she was telling me something, but I was nearly pooping my pants there, so I just banged the gate behind me and took off running, peeking behind myself every second as I was thinking that the man would be sprinting after me. After getting down the hill and into my house, it was already around 10 p.m., but when I got back, TBE grandma was still at my house and my dad questioned where I went. It was at least somewhere noon. I was in the living room, just peacefully laying on the floor as I watched YouTube and eating a few snacks. But that was when I heard that knock. I was always taught to get a parent before opening the door. So I walked into my parents' room, my dad at work at the time, and woke up my mom. I told her about the knock and let her deal with it. When she opened the door, a man was standing on the other side, maybe mid-30s, 40s. But he was alone, asking if somebody who lived here. The person he was talking about was the old owner of the house we lived in, who unfortunately passed away. My mom shook her head and closed the door by he forced it open. My mom ran to call my dad. He took his jacket off like it was his own house. He came in, sat on the couch and did not move or talk. My dad came in and the man was still mute. My mom called the police. After they arrested the man, they soon told my parents that this wasn't the first time this happened. They said the man had did this to 3 other houses. They found out he did this because he was deciding who would be the one that wouldn't survive that night, and when we called the police, we disturbed his ritual. It started with the mail. A single envelope, unmarked, dropped through the slot of my apartment door. No name, no address, just a photograph of me leaving the grocery store. I didn't recognize the camera angle. It was taken from in front like it was paparazzi, which I don't know how I didn't notice in the moment. At first I shrugged it off. Maybe someone in my building was messing around. But then came the footsteps outside my door at 2 a.m., soft, deliberate, always stopping when I froze. I told myself it was the old pipes, the neighbors, anything but the truth. But when I woke up in the morning, I saw a couple of footprints in the house. One night, I returned home to find my apartment had been rifled through. Drawers pulled open. A book lying face down, my favorite mug cracked in half on the kitchen floor. Nothing stolen. Just completely destroyed. I called the police. They came, took notes, promised patrols. But they didn't see the man. The one who had been there. The one who watched me sleep. Weeks later, a new envelope arrived. Inside, a single sentence typed in jagged letters. I know your schedule. I left town the next day. Stayed with friends in another city. Changed routines, even changed my number. But the letters kept coming. Always just one line, sometimes a photograph. Always something I had thought, only I knew. It took months before I found out the truth. He wasn't random. He had studied families like mine, watching, cataloging, choosing his next target with meticulous care. And according to the detectives who finally caught him, he didn't care who survived or who didn't. He just wanted to see fear thrive in a home he'd entered, once, silently, and left behind forever. The last note I received, months after his capture, read, "You were almost perfect." And I knew in that quiet, impossible moment that even the most careful precautions couldn't erase what he'd already planted, the feeling of being watched, always. When my brother and sister moved into the basement apartment, the landlord hesitated before handing them the keys. "Just keep the place quiet at night," she muttered. They didn't understand what he meant. The unit was small, low-ceilinged, and cold in a way that felt intentional. Everyone in the neighborhood knew a girl had gone missing from that same apartment years ago. No body, no clues. She simply vanished. Some people said she ran away. Others whispered that she never left the basement. The first night, they tried to ignore the uneasiness. They were tired, surrounded by half-opened boxes. But right after midnight, there came a sound, soft, dragging footsteps from the ceiling above them. Except no one lived upstairs. The landlord had mentioned that more than once. My sister froze. "Do you hear that?" My brother did. The steps wandered back and forth, slow and heavy, as if someone were pacing directly above their bed. Then came a tap. 3 sharp knocks that traveled along the ceiling like something walking on its hands. He grabbed a broom handle and slammed it upward. The footsteps stopped instantly. They didn't sleep after that. The second night was worse. My sister stepped into the washroom to brush her teeth and stopped cold. Thin, freshly cut strands of black hair were scattered across tile floor. Not shed, not fallen. Cut, as if someone had stood exactly where she was standing and trimmed their hair over the sink. My brother swore he had cleaned the floor earlier. The hair wasn't theirs. Before they could say a word, the temperature dropped. The lights flickered, and from behind the shower curtain, it sounded like someone was tapping the tiles. They backed out slowly, and as they stepped into the hallway, they saw it. The front door, the one they had locked with a deadbolt an hour ago, was standing wide open. Not cracked, not ajar. Wide open. They didn't bother packing. They didn't look back. They drove away, with only their wallets and phones. My brother dropped the hair by the door, but for some odd reason it was in the car with us. I chucked it out of the window, and it was gone. The landlord didn't ask why they were leaving. He just nodded, as if he'd been expecting it. To this day, no one lives in that basement apartment. And no one lives upstairs either.